The first thing anyone noticed about O'Malley's bar wasn't the neon sign, the scuffed pool tables, or the jukebox that still coughed out rock classics like it was the 1980s. It was the smell. Beer, wood polish, fried food, and a hint of cigarette smoke that clung to the walls even decades after smoking indoors had been banned. For the locals of Dry Creek, Montana, that smell was home. For outsiders, it was usually a warning. That night, the place was packed. Friday, paycheck night. Farmers, ranch hands, mechanics, and a few out-of-towners filled the booths and crowded the counter. Laughter boomed over the jukebox, mugs clinked together, and the dull crack of pool balls echoed from the back. Behind the bar, Mary O'Malley, the owner and reigning queen of the establishment, poured drinks with the efficiency of a battle-hardened general. Her brother, Jack, leaned lazily against the counter, keeping one eye on the customers and the other on the game playing on the tiny television mounted in the corner. He wasn't much for small talk, but everyone knew Jack was the kind of guy you didn't mess with. Years in the Marines had left him broad-shouldered, scarred, and with a reputation for ending fights before they started. "Another round, Jack!" called out Dave, one of the local ranchers, his face already flushed from beer. "You got it," Jack muttered, grabbing bottles with practiced ease. It was shaping up to be a typical night at O'Malley's, until the door opened. The first thing wrong was the sound. No creak, no gust of cold Montana air. Just silence, as if the door had opened into a vacuum. A few heads turned, curiosity dulled by alcohol, and then more followed when they saw who, or rather, what, was standing there. They weren't locals. They weren't even from Earth. For figures ducked through the doorway, their bodies too tall and angular to pass for human. Their skin glistened like obsidian under the neon lights, and their eyes shone faintly, reflecting the bar's dim glow. Each wore a dark suit of segmented armor that hissed faintly with some kind of built-in respirator. The bar went silent. Even the jukebox seemed to falter mid-song. Mary's first thought was pranksters, maybe some new VR costume tech or bored college kids. But then she caught Jack's eyes. He didn't look amused. He looked ready. The tallest of the four scanned the room. Its voice crackled through a translator box mounted at its throat. "This dwelling is secured. All present are detained." Nobody moved. Then Dave laughed, a loud, nervous guffaw. "What is this, Comic-Con? You guys lost?" The alien turned its head toward him with a slow, deliberate movement. Dave's laughter died. Mary stepped forward, wiping her hands on a bar towel. "Look, I don't know who you think you are, but you don't just walk into my bar and start making threats. Either order a drink or get out." A ripple of uneasy chuckles spread through the bar. People wanted to believe it was a joke. They wanted to believe it was some over-the-top prank. But Jack wasn't laughing. He shifted his stance, hand lowering subtly toward the heavy flashlight he kept under the counter. The leader of the creatures raised a three-fingered hand, and the others moved, positioning themselves at the exits. One hissed, a sound too sharp and insect-like to be human. "This is not a request," the leader said. "We require test subjects. Compliance ensures survival. Resistance." The hiss of its weapon igniting filled the silence. A long, glowing blade extended from a hilt, half sword, half plasma torch. The crowd collectively inhaled. Someone muttered a curse. Jack's jaw tightened. He leaned toward Mary. "Get everyone low. Now." Mary swallowed but nodded. She clapped her hands. "Down! Everyone get down!" Chairs scraped and glasses shattered as the patrons scrambled under tables, behind booths, anywhere they could duck for cover. The aliens seemed unbothered, methodical, like hunters who had trapped their prey. Jack didn't duck. He stood tall, eyes locked on the leader. "You picked the wrong bar." The alien tilted its head, curious. "You do not fear?" Jack shrugged. "Been threatened by scarier things than you." He reached under the counter, and in one smooth motion brought up the old double-barrel shotgun Mary kept for break-ins. The barrels gleamed in the bar's low light. The room froze again. The alien leader's eyes flared. "Primitive. Effective," Jack said and fired. The blast thundered through the bar, rattling glasses and sending smoke curling to the ceiling. The leader staggered back, armor sparking where the shot tore into it. Not dead, but definitely surprised. The others hissed, raising their weapons, but before they could strike, half the bar surged forward. Maybe it was the beer. Maybe it was the sheer audacity of seeing aliens stroll into their favorite watering hole like they owned the place. But the people of Dry Creek weren't about to lie down quietly. Dave hurled a chair at one of them. Carla, the schoolteacher, smashed a bottle against the bar and charged like she was in a barroom brawl. The pool players swung their cues like spears. Chaos erupted. The aliens lashed out, plasma blades hissing, but the cramped space of the bar worked against them. Their weapons carved into wood and steel, sending sparks flying, but humans ducked, scrambled, and fought back with anything they could grab, bottles, stools, even the jukebox, which went crashing to the floor in a shower of sparks. Jack racked the shotgun and fired again, this time catching one square in the chest. The creature roared and stumbled, its armor smoking. Mary grabbed a frying pan from the kitchen pass-through and swung it into the head of another, the clang echoing like a church bell. The patrons fought like cornered wolves, wild and reckless, and for the first time the aliens faltered. They had expected frightened prey. Instead, they had walked into a storm. The leader bellowed in its guttural tongue, swinging its plasma blade in a wide arc that cleaved a booth in two. But Jack was faster. He lunged, slamming the butt of his shotgun into the alien's jaw, and followed with a punch that rattled his own knuckles. The thing stumbled back, eyes blazing with shock more than pain. "Welcome to Earth," Jack growled. The bar was in shambles. Tables overturned, glass everywhere, smoke hanging in the air. But the humans weren't broken. They were standing. The aliens, for the first time since entering, looked uncertain. Mary, panting, frying pan still in hand, locked eyes with her brother. "What the hell are these things?" Jack didn't answer right away. He reloaded the shotgun slowly, deliberately. "Doesn't matter," he said finally. "What matters is they picked the wrong damn bar." The crowd, emboldened, murmured agreement. Some laughed nervously. Others grabbed fresh makeshift weapons. And as the leader straightened, plasma blade humming menacingly, and the others regrouped at the door, everyone in O'Malley's knew one thing for certain: this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The air inside O'Malley's bar was thick with smoke, the acrid bite of scorched wood mixing with spilled beer and the copper tang of adrenaline. The jukebox lay in shattered pieces, its last note still ringing in the ears of anyone sober enough to hear it. Chairs were overturned, tables splintered, glass scattered across the floor like glitter under the flickering neon light. But the real tension came from the four intruders, regrouping near the door, their obsidian armor gleaming faintly as their respirators hissed. The leader, the one Jack had blasted with buckshot, still stood tall, though his chest plate smoked where pellets had bitten into it. He flexed his long fingers over the hilt of his plasma blade, unshaken. The bar had gone quiet, everyone waiting, everyone tense. Humans held bottles, pool cues, and improvised weapons. No one backed down. No one ran. Jack spat onto the floor, the sound loud in the silence. "You boys should have stayed in your spaceship." The leader's translator crackled. "Resistance is inefficient. You will serve. Or you will be eliminated." It stepped forward, and that was when the floor beneath them shook. A deep vibration thrummed through the wood, rattling loose glasses and sending dust from the rafters drifting down. Outside, through the grimy windows, lights flared, harsh white beams cutting across the night sky. "More of them," Mary muttered, gripping her frying pan tighter. The leader's eyes glowed brighter, as if pleased. Reinforcements had arrived. The townsfolk exchanged glances. Nobody liked the odds. But Jack's face was set like stone. "All right," he said, voice steady. "Then we keep this simple. We fight until they stop moving." Dave, blood on his forehead from a flying bottle earlier, barked a laugh. "Hell, that's just Friday night at O'Malley's." Laughter rippled, strained but real, and the spell of fear broke. People shifted, straightening their backs, shoulders squaring. If this was the end, they weren't meeting it on their knees. The leader raised its weapon high. The hiss of the plasma blade drowned the silence. Then the front wall of O'Malley's exploded inward. Boards cracked, glass shattered, and a hulking shape forced its way through, a new alien, larger, heavier armored, its shoulders scraping the ceiling. Its weapon wasn't a blade but a crackling, three-pronged staff that spat arcs of energy across the floor. Sparks snapped, and the bar's lights flickered. "Ah, hell!" Carla muttered, clutching her broken bottle tighter. Jack didn't waste time. He fired. The buckshot hit, but this new one barely flinched. The pellets ricocheted off like rain on stone. The leader hissed something in its guttural language, and suddenly the fight was on again. The massive alien swung its staff, lightning arcing across the bar. The bolt hit the metal jukebox wreckage, sending sparks flying. A few patrons cried out, scrambling to avoid the discharge. Jack shouted, "Ground yourselves! Wood, not metal!" He dove behind the bar, yanking a stool to shield Mary as another arc scorched the countertop. Dave, never the type to follow orders, roared and leapt onto the big alien's back with nothing but a barstool leg. He swung it down, cracking against its respirator mask. The alien stumbled, surprised at the audacity if not the damage. Carla darted forward, stabbing her broken bottle into the thinner joints of another alien's armor. Blue-black ichor sprayed, sizzling where it hit the floor. She screamed as its clawed hand swiped at her, grazing her shoulder, but she didn't let go. The whole bar turned into a frenzy of survival. Bottles smashed, chairs flew, fists connected with alien plating again and again. The aliens were stronger, faster, and armed with technology no one in Dry Creek had ever seen, but the humans were relentless. Jack fired his last shell, then hurled the shotgun itself like a club. It cracked against the leader's helmet with a satisfying clang. Without missing a beat, Jack reached down, grabbed the baseball bat that always leaned near the bar's back door for unruly drunks, and swung it like he'd been born holding it. The bat connected with the smaller alien's knees, dropping it hard. Mary, covered in sweat and grime, shouted over the chaos. "We can't hold this forever!" "I know!" Jack shouted back. His eyes scanned the room, desperate for an advantage. Then they fell on the propane tanks in the kitchen, big silver canisters stacked near the grill. Dangerous. Reckless. Exactly what he needed. "Cover me!" Jack yelled, vaulting over the bar. Bullets of plasma energy scorched past him, embedding in the walls and floor, but he moved low and fast, sliding across spilled beer and grabbing one of the tanks. He yanked it toward the door, dragging it like a man possessed. The leader saw, eyes narrowing, and raised its blade. But Mary was already there, frying pan in hand, smashing the creature's wrist with a bone-jarring swing. The blade flickered out as the alien howled. Jack slid the propane tank into place just as the hulking one raised its staff again. Jack grinned, teeth bared. "Say goodnight." He grabbed the bar's emergency flare gun from above the fire extinguisher and fired. The flare shot across the room, a blazing comet of red light. It hit the propane tank dead center. The explosion rocked O'Malley's like an earthquake. Flames roared, swallowing half the bar, the shockwave knocking humans and aliens alike to the floor. Windows shattered outward, spraying glass into the night. Jack slammed into the ground, ears ringing, smoke choking his lungs. He coughed, blinking through the haze, searching for Mary, for the others. Shapes moved, human shapes scrambling, pulling each other up. The leader was still standing. Its armor blackened, parts of it melted, but its glowing eyes burned hotter than ever. It stepped forward, relentless, and raised a trembling hand. "You cannot win! You are insignificant!" Jack staggered to his feet, bat in one hand, flare gun in the other. His lip was split, his shirt torn, but his grin was as sharp as ever. "Funny," he said. "That's exactly what the last guy who tried to start trouble in O'Malley said." Behind him, the survivors of Dry Creek straightened, one by one. Some bleeding, some coughing, all furious. They lifted whatever weapons they still had, chairs, bottles, sticks, fists. The alien leader paused, its glowing eyes flicking over the sight of bloodied, battered humans still refusing to kneel. It hissed something low and guttural, a word the translator struggled to shape, Impossible. The surviving aliens shifted uneasily, the certainty of their mission cracking under the weight of human defiance. Jack lifted the bat, pointing it like a sword. Welcome to the real test, ugly. And here's rule number 1, humans don't quit. The bar filled with ragged cheers. And as flames licked the ceiling and alien reinforcements closed in outside, the people of Dry Creek braced themselves for the next round, because if O'Malley's was going down, it was going down swinging. The fire was spreading fast. Flames crawled up the splintered beams of O'Malley's ceiling, smoke curling in thick black ropes. Outside, the sound of more alien boots crunching against gravel carried into the night. Reinforcements. The bar had become a battleground, and now the humans of Dry Creek were cornered inside a burning trap. Mary coughed, clutching her apron over her mouth. We can't hold them here, Jack. We'll burn before they kill us. Jack's eyes darted around the wreckage. He knew she was right. The propane blast had taken out half the front wall, giving them a narrow view of the street beyond. Through the haze, more of the armored figures were forming up in a line, their weapons glowing like miniature suns. This is it, Carla muttered, blood running down her arm where the alien claw had sliced her earlier. We're screwed. Jack barked a laugh. Not yet, we're not. He looked over the crowd, farmers, mechanics, teachers, all bruised and bloodied but still standing. We hold the line here, we die. But if we take the fight to them... You're out of your mind, Dave said, though his knuckles were white around the broken pool cue he still clutched. Maybe, Jack admitted, wiping soot from his face. But they don't know how humans fight. Not really. They think we break. They think we kneel. He hefted the baseball bat, the wood charred at the tip. So let's give them one hell of a surprise. The crowd murmured, fear and defiance mixing in their eyes. Finally, Mary slammed her frying pan against the bar, the clang ringing out like a war drum. Well, what the hell are you all waiting for? Let's show these freaks what happens when you mess with O'Malley's. A ragged cheer went up. The aliens outside began to advance, weapons raised, moving with military precision. The leader inside, scarred, smoking, but still alive, lifted its blade high, pointing toward the humans. End them. Jack didn't wait. Now! He roared, charging through the gap in the wall. The townsfolk followed, a wild and furious stampede. Farmers with fence posts, mechanics with wrenches, bartenders with pans. They burst out of the burning wreckage screaming like banshees. The aliens hadn't expected it. For one stunned second, their disciplined formation faltered. Then the humans crashed into them. The first alien soldier swung a plasma weapon, but Dave drove his pool cue straight into the creature's respirator mask. It shattered with a crunch, and the alien choked, collapsing to the dirt. Carla hurled a bottle filled with burning liquor, flames splashing across another's armor, forcing it to stumble backward shrieking. Jack went for the biggest target, the towering brute with the lightning staff. He ducked under the first swing, sparks grazing his back, and brought the bat up in a savage arc. The wood cracked against the alien's knee joint, buckling it with a sharp snap. The brute roared and swung again, but Jack was already moving, tackling it into the dirt. Around him, chaos erupted. Plasma blasts scorched the gravel, missing by inches as townsfolk swarmed the invaders. Someone, Mary probably, screamed a wordless battle cry, the sound cutting through the smoke like a blade. For a moment, impossibly, the humans pushed them back. But then the second wave arrived. A dozen more aliens stormed in from the street, their weapons humming, their armor gleaming in the firelight. They opened fire. Beams of searing light cut across the battlefield. A pickup truck parked outside O'Malley's exploded in a fireball. The humans dove for cover, the tide shifting hard against them. Fall back! Someone yelled. No! Jack bellowed, dragging himself up from the dirt. His ribs ached where the brute had slammed him, but he ignored it. No retreat! We take them here! The leader stepped out of the bar, its glowing eyes fixed on Jack. Its armor was cracked, one arm hanging uselessly, but it still carried itself with menace. You cannot resist forever. Humanity is fragile. Replaceable. Already we are spreading across your world. Jack spat blood, grinning through the pain. Funny. Everyone who's ever tried to conquer us said the same damn thing. You know how it ends? The leader tilted its head, almost curious. How? Jack's grip tightened on the bat. With us drinking to your memory. He charged. The leader swung its plasma blade, but Jack slipped inside its guard, slamming the bat across its helmet. The wood splintered, but the alien staggered dazed. Jack followed with a punch, then another, hammering like a man possessed. The brute with the staff rose again, electricity crackling, but Dave leapt onto its back, screaming curses as he drove a jagged piece of rebar into the gaps in its armor. The brute convulsed, electricity sparking wildly, frying itself from the inside. Both man and alien went down in a smoking heap. Dave! Carla screamed, but there was no time. More aliens were pressing in, their discipline regained, their weapons cutting swathes through the human defenders. Mary ducked behind an overturned truck, pulling a wounded teenager to cover. Her hands shook, but her eyes burned with fury. She spotted something in the wreckage, the sheriff's cruiser, parked crooked at the end of the block. Its shotgun still rested in the front rack. She sprinted. Plasma bolts scorched the pavement around her, but she dove through the shattered window, hands closing around the weapon. She came up firing, the scattershot ripping through two aliens at close range. You picked the wrong town, assholes! She roared. The tide wavered again. Jack and the leader grappled in the dirt, rolling through glass and ash. The alien snarled, stronger, heavier, forcing Jack down. Its blade flickered inches from his throat. Yield! It hissed. Jack gritted his teeth, every muscle straining. We don't do that! With a roar, he headbutted the alien square in its glowing eyes. The creature reeled back, stunned, and Jack snatched the fallen flare gun from the ground. He shoved it into the alien's chest and fired. The flare ignited inside its armor, flames bursting outward. The leader shrieked, flailing as fire consumed it from within. Jack rolled clear, chest heaving, as the alien collapsed in a smoking heap. The remaining soldiers froze, their leader's death sending shockwaves through their ranks. They looked at the humans, bloodied, battered, burned, but still standing, and for the first time, fear flickered in their glowing eyes. Carla, limping, raised her broken bottle. What's the matter? Thought we were fragile? The humans roared, surging forward with renewed fury. The aliens faltered, their formation breaking under the sheer madness of human resistance. Plasma weapons clattered to the dirt as the creatures began to retreat, dragging their wounded, fleeing back toward the dark shapes of their waiting ships. Jack staggered to his feet, watching them go, his bat nothing more than splinters now. That's right, he rasped. Run! The street was a ruin. O'Malley's was half gone, flames devouring the remains. Trucks burned, glass littered the ground, and bodies, alien and human alike, lay scattered. But the survivors of Dry Creek stood together, bloodied but unbroken. And as the last alien ship lifted into the night sky, its engines howling, Jack knew this wasn't the end. This was only the beginning. The flames of O'Malley's burned against the night sky like a beacon, painting the Montana horizon red. The once lively bar that had been the heart of Dry Creek was now a blackened skeleton, half of its roof caved in, its walls glowing with embers. The smell of smoke and scorched alien flesh carried on the wind, heavy and acrid. But the survivors stood in the street, shoulders heaving, weapons, or what was left of them, still clutched in their hands. Jack leaned against the remains of a pickup truck, chest heaving, blood running down his temple. His knuckles were raw, his bat reduced to little more than splinters, but his eyes still burned. Beside him, Mary stood with the sheriff's shotgun, hair singed, apron torn, face streaked with soot. Around them, townsfolk patched wounds with torn shirts, helped each other up from the dirt, and gathered the injured. They had lost people, neighbors, friends, but they were still alive. And that mattered. For a long time, no one spoke. The silence was broken only by the distant whine of alien engines as the surviving ships disappeared into the sky, leaving streaks of light that faded into the stars. Finally Dave, limping, face bruised, one arm hanging uselessly, let out a ragged laugh. Well, hell, he wheezed. That's gotta be the worst bar fight in history. Carla barked a laugh that turned into a wince as she clutched her wounded side. Worst? That was the best damn bar fight. You see the look on their faces when we didn't drop? Priceless. Laughter rippled through the group, weak but real, the sound of people refusing to break. Mary looked at her brother. Jack, what the hell just happened? Why here? Why us? Jack wiped the blood from his brow, staring at the horizon where the ships had vanished. Doesn't matter why. What matters is we gave them a message they won't forget. And what message is that? Carla asked, grim but curious. Jack's voice hardened. That humans don't scare easy. You come into our homes, our towns, our bars, you don't walk back out the same. If you walk out at all. The survivors nodded. Heads lifted. Backs straightened. But even as relief trickled through the group, reality pressed in. Dry Creek was in ruins. Families were mourning. And somewhere out there, those aliens were regrouping, planning, maybe even calling for more reinforcements. Mary looked at Jack, voice quiet. They'll be back, won't they? Jack's jaw tightened. He didn't answer right away. Finally, he said, Yeah. They will. But next time, it won't just be Dry Creek. Word's gonna spread. People hear what happened tonight. And when they do, he glanced at the others, his voice steady, they'll know Earth isn't prey. We're the ones you regret hunting. The group fell silent, the weight of his words sinking in. From the wreckage of O'Malley's, someone dragged out the old American flag that had hung above the bar. It was scorched at the edges, holes burned clean through, but the stars and stripes still showed. They planted it in the dirt outside, the flames flickering behind it, and the survivors gathered around. The moment was raw, unpolished, but powerful. In their bruises and burns, in their torn clothes and bloodied faces, they didn't look defeated. They looked defiant. Jack turned his gaze to the stars, where faint streaks of light marked the path of the retreating ships. He wondered what those creatures were thinking now. If they were reporting back to their leaders about the primitive humans who refused to die quietly. If they were questioning orders. If maybe, just maybe, they had finally realized Earth wasn't worth the trouble. But deep down, Jack knew better. This wasn't over. It was the first round of something bigger. Something much bigger. All right, he said finally, his voice rough but steady. We've got work to do. Fires to put out. Wounded to patch up. Dead to bury. He straightened, squaring his shoulders despite the ache in his bones. But make no mistake, tonight Dry Creek stood up. And if they come back, Earth will stand up too. Mary gave a tired, crooked smile. All from a little bar fight. Jack chuckled, coughing on smoke. Hell of a cover charge. The crowd chuckled, the tension easing a little. People began moving, helping, tending, salvaging what they could from the ashes. Jack lingered at the edge of the street, bat splinters still in his grip, staring out into the dark prairie. He thought of the creatures that had come swaggering into O'Malley's, sure they could take what they wanted. He thought of how they'd left, beaten and burned. He raised the broken bat, pointing it toward the stars. Come back if you want, he muttered under his breath. We'll be waiting. And with that, he turned back to his people. The night wore on, filled with the sounds of rebuilding, hammering, digging, quiet sobs, and tired laughter. By dawn, the fires had burned down to smoldering embers, and the first rays of sunlight stretched across the Montana plains. O'Malley's was gone. But something new had risen in its place, a bond, unspoken but strong. A promise. The people of Dry Creek weren't just survivors. They were the first line. And the galaxy had just learned a dangerous truth. You don't walk into a human bar and expect to walk out again. The end. And as always, if you enjoyed this story and want more tales where humanity shows the galaxy what we're made of, make sure to subscribe to the Void Narratives. There's a lot more fire where this came from.